Let's talk about walls. As of the recording of this video, the government's currently shut down because of the current political fight over the funding for Trump's border wall. As per usual, I won't be advocating for a particular position on the wall in this video. Instead, I want to evaluate the coherence of two extreme positions on immigration. More precisely, I want to evaluate whether the principles used to justify these positions are consistently applied by those who endorse them. Now, by calling these positions extreme, I don't mean to discredit them. Extreme isn't a value term. It's not synonymous with bad or implausible. For all we know, the correct position could be the extreme one, though I do think it's more common that the truth is somewhere in the middle. Being extreme just means it lies on the outer edges of that spectrum of positions you could hold on immigration and national borders. Now, though these positions are extreme, they don't appear to be all that fringe. They get a lot of play in the media, and mainstream pundits and politicians flirt with them, if not outright endorse them. My hope is that by pushing for consistency in the ideology standing behind our various immigration positions, we can be moved to develop more nuanced and defensible views of immigration and national borders. So let's get into it. Let's call the first position open border extremism. According to open border extremism, walls, borders, and immigration restrictions are inherently immoral. Nancy Pelosi, current Speaker of the House, seemed to endorse this position recently.
A wall is an immorality. It's not who we are as a nation. No, it has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with a wall is an immorality between countries. It's an old way of thinking.
The reasoning behind this position is typically that walls, borders, and immigration restrictions are inherently xenophobic, or at least problematically exclusionary. It's simply a violation of the human rights of non-Americans to bar them from immigrating to the United States, either for political asylum or just in search of a better life. It necessarily reflects hostility towards foreigners, likely for racist reasons, whether implicitly or explicitly. But are these principles defensible when consistently applied across contexts? Do open border extremists themselves stick to them in the way that intellectual integrity demands? Let's find out. Do open border extremists object when people install fences around their house? Or do they believe that property owners have a right to regulate who does and doesn't go on their property, even if those people don't intend them any harm? Do they believe that people have a right to form groups on the basis of certain shared values, groups that exclude people who don't share those values? Take, for example, groups based on political or religious ideology. Do open border extremists believe that everyone outside of your family and close friends have a right to your help, financial resources, and property? That you're being problematically exclusionary if you privilege family and close friends over mere acquaintances and perfect strangers. I really doubt that open border extremists carry their principles into these contexts. But this means that they're either being inconsistent or that there's some unstated relevant difference between national units of association and personal units of association, such that borders and restrictions are morally okay in the latter case, but not the former case. But what could that difference be? Why do personal units of association have rights to autonomy and self-determination, but national units of association don't? I won't say that open border extremists can't come up with something here, but I will say that they must come up with something, on pain of inconsistency. Now let's turn to an extreme position on the other side of the spectrum. Consider what I'll call hardcore immigration restrictionism. According to this view, the United States has no moral obligation to provide asylum to migrants fleeing political oppression, nor to provide economic opportunities or social programs to migrants seeking a better life in America. Hardcore restrictionists, as I'll call them, even though that's kind of hard to say, are typically fine with immigrants who bring some skill to the table. That is to say, they're fine with immigration based on merit. If someone from another country can contribute to the United States in a way that's useful to us, they're happy to welcome them. But they generally object to opening our doors to a number of unskilled immigrants, or immigrants who cross the border to benefit from our various social programs. One second. I need coffee. But again, we should ask, are these principles defensible when applied consistently across contexts? Do immigration restrictionists stick to them in the way that intellectual integrity demands? Well, let's find out. Do immigration restrictionists think it's fine to close your front door to someone who's fleeing imminent violence? Or would they consider you morally callous if you asserted your right to close your front door for any reason whatsoever? After all, that person's not there to benefit you or your family. Do immigration restrictionists think it's fine to ignore poor people who substantially lack opportunities to make a better life for themselves and their family? That is, unless they can bring something to the table to benefit you or your family. Or would they consider such a disposition... Or would they consider such a disposition miserly and therefore vicious? I mean, it's one thing to help a poor skilled person who can help us in return, but why would we be obligated to help a poor unskilled person? What can they do for us? Like before, I really doubt that restrictionists carry their principles into these contexts. This again means they're either being inconsistent or that there's some unstated relevant difference between national units of association and personal units of association, such that closing your doors and wallets is morally okay in the first case, but not in the second. But again, what could this difference be? Why would personal units of association be morally obligated to help others in need, but national units of association wouldn't be? Again, I won't say there's nothing an immigration restrictionist can come up with here, but I will say that they must come up with something, on pain of inconsistency. You might notice I said nothing about the role of borders and walls when it comes to stopping violent criminals, gang members, and terrorists from crossing the border. This is because I know of no one who believes as a point of ideology that it's perfectly fine for violent criminals and terrorists to cross the border freely and without resistance. You might think that one party is more serious about border security than the other, or that one party is too serious about border security. That's fair enough. But basically no one endorses as a point of ideology that violent criminals, gang members, and terrorists should be able to cross our borders freely. Whether or not a wall would be necessary or effective is an interesting and important question, but it's one that's beyond the purview of this channel. Alright, so those are some of my thoughts on two extreme immigration positions. What do you think about these positions? If you think I'm right that they can't be defensively and consistently applied across contexts, what position would you endorse? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, see ya!